Alabama heading to the college football playoff, and we're going to talk about that with our friend Chris Lowe. But first, let me remind you guys that we want you to be part of what we're doing here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Roll Tide. There he is. He's part of the Open, too. I didn't realize that until I just saw it there a second ago. Chris Lowe from Espn. I'm Mick Gillispie. And, Chris, it is always great to see you, my friend. How you been?
Doing great. It's good to be with you, Mick, as always. And happy Merry Christmas to all you and your listeners. And I guess I should say Merry Early Christmas, as we're still a few weeks away.
Thing.
It's here. It's upon us.
No, we've already been granted a beautiful Christmas. I haven't talked to you in a while, how the season just changed so much after the infamous Gravedigger in Auburn and then beating Georgia in the SEC championship game and then getting into the college football playoff. I feel like the Christmas tree has been loaded for Alabama gifts this year.
Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, you look across college football, just the way everything has happened and some of the crazy things, results, and just as you say, the way the whole landscape of the sport has changed this year from what we thought we might have in September. But no, who says you don't need a Christmas miracle every once in a while? For Alabama.
What did you think of Gravedigger? What was your reaction to that? Because I think you had to be there, right? Because I think I heard you in the press conference.
Yeah, I was there. I was standing around Isaiah Bond when he said that. Someone said, "What's the name of that play?" And you got varied answers, varied responses. I think Nick said, I don't think Nick really ever gave an answer. And I think Jalen Milroe said, I don't know. And then Isaiah Bond stepped up and said, we call it Gravedigger. And which is the perfect name for a play like that. Certainly if you're from the Auburn persuasion. I don't know if I've ever seen, as I walk down through the stands, I always sort of go back and forth in games like that, Mick, whether I'm going to go down the field for the last 3 or 4 minutes or stay in the press box in close games like that. And I was thinking about, with about 2.5, 3 minutes, I'm going to go down. Alabama was punting. It looked like they were toast. And I said, I'm going to stay up here. And of course, then you had the muff punt. Bama gets the ball back, and the rest is history. So I was actually making my way down through the stands after the game, and the
you didn't want to get caught.
You didn't want to get shock.
You didn't want to get caught in the landslide of it. If they won, you didn't want to get caught at being out on the field.
Well, that would have. You're right. But just walking through the stands as I made my way to the field, I don't know that I've seen a group of fans that just were totally in shock and just almost, the bewilderment that was just gripped that stadium after that play. You could run that play 1,000 times. I really believe this. You could run that same play 1,000 times, and that wouldn't happen anywhere. And but yeah, truly a miracle for Alabama. And even Nick Saban said after it, sometimes you got to be lucky. Sometimes things got to have to happen just right if you're going to have a championship caliber season. But that Auburn Alabama game, and I think we've talked about it before, man. You just every time you think, well, one team is clearly superior, and I've seen that game live a bunch of times. Of course, we're talking about the Iron Bowl. Then something crazy happens. 2 years ago in Auburn, think about that game 2 years ago.
I know.
Alabama's playing awful. They can't protect the quarterback. Auburn sacks Bryce Young, 7, 8 times in that game. Bama can't score, and they get the ball with just a little over a minute to play on their own 8. And they go 80 yards or 90 yards, score a touchdown on a great throw, great catch, and then go into 4 overtimes to win, and then get to the championship game and lose to Georgia. And, of course, you go back to the kick 6. Everyone remembers that. I think about that 2010 game when Auburn won it all. And Bama's up, 24 points in that game? An Alabama team that, I can't believe that Nick Saban would ever lose 2 games in a regular season, but they did that year. Didn't go to the SEC championship game. And Alabama dominated that football game, until Cam Newton took over there in the second half. And Auburn comes all the way back to win 28-27. So that game in particular everybody, I remember talking to people in my family. They said, "Where are you going this weekend?" I said, "I'm going to the Bama Auburn game." Well, that'll be a blowout. No, I've seen that game too many times to know that the unexpected usually happens.
Do you think Nick Saban's going to retire if Alabama wins a national championship?
I don't think he's made that decision. And I don't think he's, the way he thinks, he doesn't think about hypotheticals. He doesn't think if this happens, I'm going to do that. That's just not the way he's wired. I think right now Nick Saban's thinking about one thing, and that's what they're doing in practice today and trying to get better and figure out ways to be playing their best football, because he's got to have his team ready on January 1st. And every team probably is a little rusty, Mick, when they come back from break.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that these next two practices probably won't be easy on the coaching staff or the players, because I guarantee you there's a little bit of rust, and they'll hear about it from Nick Saban. But I just don't think that's the way he thinks. Yes, he's 72. Yes, he's, it's harder at 72 to work the number of hours you got to work at that level. And one thing I will say is he's never going to slack off. He's not going to hire an extra person or two so he can work fewer hours, or he's never going to say, you know what, I'm not going to travel as much. I mean, you go back to last week. I mean, he's been on the road ad nauseum.
Yeah, right.
Recruiting guys. I mean, he will never, ever say, all right, I'm going to coach a few more years, but I'm going to sort of do it differently. I'm going to slack off. I'm going to hire some other guys. I probably won't go on the road as much. No, he will retire before he will do that. Is he at that point? I don't know. I mean, I know he thinks he's got a really good young team coming back. They're recruiting well. I think they're going to be, as they have the last few years, they're going to be very active in the portal, and they're going to go out and plug holes with some really good players. I know they've got this weekend, they've had some really good defensive players on campus, guys that can rush the quarterback, guys that will be able to help them in the defensive line. So he certainly isn't recruiting or acting or coaching like he's ready to hang it up. Now, that said, if you win it all this year and you're anybody and you've coached as long as he has, is that a perfect way to exit stage and say, you know what, I'm going to turn it over to somebody else? Yeah, I would say so. But again, I don't think he's thinking like that. In fact, I'll double down. I know he's not thinking like that. That's just not the way he's wired.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of smoke from maybe people that don't know Nick Saban, because I'm with you. I just don't see him being the type of guy that has a thought like that in the back of his head. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I also think he's the type of guy that would live out his contract. And he's always said, well, if they don't listen, if he's not getting through to the players, if he's not having success, then that would lead to him retiring or doing something else. I don't see any of that. This is the best coaching job he's ever done.
He told me one time as a coach that, and this has been several years ago, that if you're thinking about retiring, if that's sort of on your mind and you're thinking about it, you get up in the morning, the end of the day, that's sort of something that crosses your mind, then you've probably already retired.
Yeah.
And I just don't think he's there yet. That will be a decision he will make after the season. Certainly his wife, Terry, will weigh heavily into it. He's got other people that he leans on. Mostly he's going to lean on himself. Is he, in his mind, is he still as effective? Does he enjoy it as much? Now, I do know this. He's also told me that he doesn't want to work all the way up until where his quality of life is such where he can't do some of the things after football that he wants to do. I mean, there's a lot to him over and above football. I know people don't believe that, but there are things that he wants to do with his family. He loves cars. He loves the fact that he's got all these different dealerships. He's not been a big travel guy, but he hasn't had a chance to travel. He's got grandkids now. So there's more to Nick Saban's life than just football. And I don't think he wants to go to an age to where after he's done, he can't really enjoy life and do some of the things he wants to do. So where is he in between those two parts in his life? I don't know. But I do know that he's enjoyed coaching this football team. He's enjoyed seeing the way they've developed and they've improved. I think he was pretty I think he was frustrated early on that this team was making mistakes. They didn't have an answer at quarterback, seemingly. They just weren't going out and executing the way his teams typically do. They were hurting themselves, Mick, with penalties.
Yeah.
That's the thing, turnovers and penalties. And his teams typically have not done that, certainly his best teams. And once they sort of got through that rough stretch and the team responded, the thing he's always loved about this team is how they've been willing to be coached hard. They haven't, no one has pouted or sulked. If Nick or any of the staff got on to them, they've stayed together, they've supported each other. That's the part he said. This team likes to practice. Even after bad practices or bad games, they were willing to come back and practice hard and get better. And I think a lot of that is Dallas Turner's going to be a first-round pick. Probably Kool-Aid will. But, there are no stars. I think that team last year stood around and watched Bryce Young a lot because he was such a good player and such a magician at the way he could make plays. And I think a lot of the, sometimes you sort of find yourself as an athlete standing around and watching him. And that team last year maybe got a little stagnant. Not that it was a bad team. I mean, gosh, they lost two games in the last play of the game. But I do think that's probably what happened last year. Is they probably stood around and watched him too much. This year, and you've heard Nick say it a million times, has been a team. They've leaned on each other. Different guys have made differences. Milroe has gotten better, and as he's gotten better, the team has rallied around him. You've seen different receivers make big plays, and they've gotten better in the offensive line. And I think defensively, what T-Rob and Kevin Steele and that whole staff has done, the way they have made difference-making type plays, and really after that Texas game, for the most part, they've set the tone defensively in just about every game they played.
No doubt about it. And one of the biggest things that has changed, and you mentioned it, and you just wrote a great story about it, is Jalen Milroe. And he says he's returning for his senior season. We heard that on The Next Round. That's our buddies up in Birmingham, part of Disrupt the Media, which I'm a small part of as well. I was shocked by him saying that it was his senior season because he's a sophomore. So that means he would have a junior season. But to me, that kind of showed me where he was as far as his future. What did you think? And tell us about that story and your thoughts on Milroe and where he's at right now.
Yeah, he definitely views this as his senior season. So do his parents. I talked to his dad, Quentin, as well, and he called it his senior season. Now, you're right in terms of eligibility and gosh, with the COVID deal, Mick, how do you ever know what's what anymore?
Never.
Junior, sophomore, senior, super senior season. He came in, I guess he came in January of 21. So yes, technically he could play 2 more seasons, but clearly he said it and he sees this as his senior season, his 4th year on campus. He could have come out, he was 3 years out of high school. I don't know that there was ever any real consideration. I don't think anybody ever really believed that he was definitely going to come out. I'm sure he thought about it. I'm sure he had some people in his ear talking to him about it, but he wants to come back and really put his stamp on this program. And if he could improve, a quarter of as much next year as he did this year, he'll be right in the middle of the Heisman Trophy mix. I mean, heck, he was 6th in the voting this year.
Yeah.
And all those guys are pretty much gone. So with the young talent they're bringing in, I think they're going to go in and look in the portal for a few more playmakers. They've still got some younger offensive linemen. I mean, you look at the way Proctor's improved at left tackle, Tyler Booker's back at guard. Even the center, I think, could come back if he wanted to. But they've got some good young kids there in the program in the offensive line. No question. In talking to Jalen, I had a chance to sit down with him at length a few weeks ago. He feels like his best football is ahead of him. This is really just sort of the start of what he can do. And if you look at it in this perspective, up until really after that South Florida game, after he was benched, he was still splitting reps. They split reps the week of the Texas game. He wasn't getting all the reps.
Mm-hmm.
In the preseason, he didn't get all the reps. There was a real I shouldn't say division. There was an uncertainty inside that offensive staff room who their best quarterback was. They didn't know. It's not that they didn't necessarily believe in him or believe in some of the others. I just don't think in their minds they'd seen enough from any of the quarterbacks to think that this is definitely the guy. And to Jalen's credit, he never quit believing in himself. He bet on himself. And even though I know he was really, pardon my French, he was pissed off that he was benched for that South Florida game. He came back with the right attitude, the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And when he and Nick talked that Sunday, Nick made it very clear, you're my guy. Okay, I like the way you responded during the game. We need you. We need your skill set. But we also need you to do X, Y, and Z if you're going to be our quarterback. And Jalen took that to heart. He got better. I think he played less with sort of that mindset of he needs to sort of look over his shoulder every time he makes a mistake and just playing a little bit more instinctively and being who he is. And you've seen that sort of just he's taken that to another level. And I think Tommy Rees and that staff have done a good job of playing more to his strengths, and letting him do what he can do. And yet saying, listen, man, if you got daylight, take off and go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing, when you watch Jalen play, and I've seen them live, I think 5 times this year, he's gotten 1,000% better at stepping up in the pocket and being patient in the pocket and feeling the pressure and sort of knowing when to run and when not to run. He has gotten so much better at that. And, boy, it's paid dividends for Bama on offense.
Alabama and Michigan in the Rose Bowl. How do you see this matchup?
Well, I think Alabama's just better. And I think Michigan's tough and they're physical. They've got a veteran offensive line. But, offensively, they sort of they're who they are. They're going to come at you. They're going to try to bully you. I don't know how many explosive plays they have in their repertoire. And especially with Bama cornerbacks and Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry, who are good at matching up and playing man and making you try to hit them down the field. But Alabama, I would say, is really going to load that line and come after them and dare them to beat them down the football. Do they have the kind of explosive playmakers on offense to do that? I guess we're going to find out. But you go back and watch Michigan this year, and they're a lineup, physical, Big Ten type football team, and they've been able to bully pretty much everybody they play. Can they do that to Alabama? We're going to find out. Not very few teams do that to Bama or have done that over the last few years. And I think when you flip it, Alabama offensively, now Alabama, I think without question, gives them the kind of dynamic that Michigan hasn't really seen. A guy like Milroe who can run, who can throw it down the field. You really need to spy him or keep an extra guy in, or he's going to burn you every time. How does Michigan deal with that? To me, this is a game that I think will be a tough game. Michigan's got a lot of pride. They have played, I think, sort of with a chip on their shoulder after the whole Harbaugh stuff, and it's sort of turned it against the world. They'll be ready, but I do think unless Alabama just doesn't play well or turns the football over, they're a better football team. Now, 2 games ago, Mick, Bama didn't play very well.
Right.
As I said, they needed a miracle to beat an Auburn team that was inferior to Alabama in personnel. And they were able to run the ball. Now, Auburn ran the ball. The quarterbacks were a lot more mobile than what Michigan will throw at them. But they did run the ball to some degree effectively. And they really, on defense until that last drive, played really well. So we've seen Bama this year have some of those games, at A&M, the Auburn game, even the Tennessee game, they trailed at half where they haven't played in stretches. I don't think you want to get into a playoff game where it's do or die and you're down at half or you have to come back from double digits or have to drive the length of the field in the last 2 minutes. I think you want to put these guys away early, sort of physically impose your will on them and then make them play your game. I think that's the key is Bama needs to make Michigan sort of play the way they want to play.
Best in the business, Chris. Always great to see you and read your stuff at ESPN. Chris Lowe doing his thing. And I know you'll be covering the Tide the rest of the way. Have a great Christmas. You too, Mick. Look forward to it. It's going to be a fun playoff. The last one with 4 teams. I guess next year we won't have all the controversy with 12 teams. But I will find a way to have as our old buddy Roy Kramer said to me years ago during the BCS, everybody hated the BCS. Now they hate the committee. He says, you know what? There'll always be some controversy in the realm of college football when it comes to picking who your national champion is. Yeah. Yeah. How crazy was that Florida State got left out and Bama got in, and now they're trying to sue. Did you ever think you'd see this? Politicians involved. I'm glad. It's nice to see that
that the politicians, and not just in that state, I've seen some rumblings in Georgia too, don't have enough to do that they need to get involved in college football.
Yeah.
That's comforting.
Merry Christmas, my friend.
You too, Mick. Take care.
Talk to you sometime soon. And guys, don't forget Pearl River Resort right now in Choctaw, Mississippi. An opportunity to go there and check out all the cool stuff. The Timeout Sports Lounge. They got the spa, Dancing Rabbit Golf Course, and proud presenter of the Bama Tailgate Daily Show and Bama Tailgate on YouTube.